Let's talk about the random function. It's a function that allows you to make random numbers. They're not really random. There's a very complicated algorithm used to develop the numbers. Computers can't actually create random numbers. They have to use some method. So it's a very complicated math problem that uses the time, actually. So to make a random number, we need to make a variable. It needs to be a variable of type float because the random function will give us a float value, a decimal value. So I'm going to say float, and I'm going to call the variable r for random. So that's declaring a variable to hold a random number. And then, because random is a function, I have to initialize it in setup. I can't initialize it all in line above setup. So that's, I'm going to say r equals, and then the function random is random. And then random takes two parameters. The smallest possible number you would want it to be, and then the largest. So if I wanted a random number, 1 to 100, I would say, 1 to 100, 1, comma, 100. And then, if we want to see what it is, I could say, let's do text size is the function you use if you haven't loaded a font and you just want to use the default generic font, but you want it to be big enough that you can see it, because the default size otherwise is 12. You can use text size, so I have text function, then r, the variable, and we'll just put it in the middle of the screen. So it's going to show us the value of r. And if I run it again, it'll be something different. And you don't need to just show it, you can use it. So I could have a, maybe I'll make an ellipse, and it will always be at 250, 250, but it will have a size of r. And then actually let's make r anywhere between 1 and 500. So it could be as small as 1 pixel by 1 pixel and as big as, I don't know, this looks like maybe a little more than 100. Now it's smaller, and so on and so forth. A couple things about random. If you, well, actually first let's, instead of changing the size of the ellipse, we'll have it always be one size, and instead I want to have a random color. So instead of r, if I want it to have a random amount of redness, I don't want to go from 1 to 500 because the color value doesn't go up to 500. The max value is 255. And the smallest is 0, so this is any amount of redness, so I'll use r for my red parameter. And then let's say I never wanted to have any green, and then always max amount of blue. So I'm going to get colors between blue and, depending on how much red, sort of a magenta color. So it's very important that you initialize random in setup and not in draw, because each time you want it, run it, you want it to have one value, as opposed to if you put random in draw, it will reassign the random value 60 times a second, as demonstrated here. Which is all well and good, but unless you want that flashy effect, you want to have it random each time, generate just one time. And of course you can use this for locations too. So if you want to, every time you run the program, you have your ellipse in a different place. Maybe I'll add some more. So I'll have maybe float x and float y, and these are locations. And I'll say x equals 0 random 0 to 500, so anywhere along the x-axis, and y equals random. Let's just always have it on the left side of the screen, so 0 to 100. You know what I need to do? I need to use x and y for the location of my ellipse. Otherwise, x and y are coming up with random values, but they're not being used anywhere. So let's actually try using them. And if we want to move, oh, did I say y? I said on the left side of the screen. I really just put it always at the top of the screen. Interesting. Okay, so made two mistakes here, but that's okay. So it's anywhere along the x-axis, 0 to 500, but towards the top of the screen, between 0 and 100 each time. So no matter where I run it, it's always going to be somewhere near the top of the screen. And finally, if I want to just keep making random variables, if I wanted my circle to move down, it always starts near the top of the screen and move down. I can just use y as I would. Y equals y plus, I don't know, 1. But if I wanted to randomize how fast it's moving, I can make one final one. So let's do float s. And that'll be the speed. Speed equals random, and let's have it between 0.5, so half a pixel every 60th of a second to 5 is pretty fast. Speed between 0.5 and 5. Now instead of adding 1 on, make this a little bit bigger so you can see the whole thing at once. 1 pixel every time draw loops through. I'm going to add r, add random speed to random starting location. So that one was really fast. That feels really fast. Yep. Oh, I added R. R is how much red, so it could be up to 255. This is, wow, this video has gone off the rails. Okay, so instead of R, if I want to add the speed, I should be using speed. How many of you watching caught all 3 of the mistakes that I made while filming this? Okay, so now we've got a low x value and a pretty low s value this time. Faster, purpler, slightly more to the right. Even more to the right. So those are some examples of ways you can use the random function to make variables.